Good afternoon. I'm Grandpa from Grandpa Shine Celtic Whiskey. Normally, I don't do whiskey reviews, but a good friend of mine said, Here, try this. It's got some good history behind it. It's good whiskey. Give it a try. So I went and bought a bottle. And I was kind of confused at first because there's two different bottles, I guess, from the same distiller. Uh, it is Uncle Nearest whiskey, small batch whiskey, 1884, 93 proof. That's some strong stuff. It says hand selected by our founders, blend curated by descendants of Nearest Green. Let me read the backside. Uncle Nearest, 1884, is a proud legacy of the Nearest whiskey maker the world never knew. Tennessee distilling legend, Nearest Green. Each of our small batch premium whiskeys are individually selected by our founders and descendants of Nearest Green, bottled at a similar proof to that of what made Nearest whiskey so beloved. So Nearest Green has quite a story. He was a small man, a black man, a slave. And he knew he couldn't work the fields the way the other slaves did. So he talked his master into letting him work in the master's distillery. Well, he became a master distiller. And later on, I think it was still during this time of slavery that Jack Daniels bought the farm, bought the plantation. And with it, basically, he bought Nearest Green. Now, when the emancipation came about, Jack Daniels said, You're a free man, you can go and do whatever you want, but please, if you would, stay and be my distill master, my whiskey master, whatever you want to call it. So he did. But he also started a small distillery of his own, hence Uncle Nearest. And he has two different styles, 1884, and the other one I don't remember right offhand. So, this stuff tastes a lot like Jack Daniels. In fact, yeah. When I first tasted it, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is just a high proof Jack Daniels. This is nasty stuff. Because I don't really care for Jack Daniels. So then I got to thinking about it. You know, this is 93 proof. Jack Daniels is 80 proof. I'll bet you if I dilute this down, or proof it down to about 80, it would probably be better than Jack Daniels. So that's what I've done. And cheers. Basically, I used ice to cool it down, dilute it down a little bit. It's probably running 80 proof or so. And it's a decent bourbon at that. A little bit of pepper, a lot of oak tannins. Just a decent bourbon whiskey. Not a Canadian whiskey. It's a good Tennessee whiskey. It would make a good, kind of like Jack Daniels makes a good cocktail whiskey, because it has that bitterness and the heavy oak tannins. By mixing it with different things, whether it be 7-Up, Coke, or maybe making an old-fashioned. I'm not a bartender, so I don't know what goes into it, but I'm sure there's some sweetness that goes into it to offset the bitterness. Jack Daniel's is a good cocktail whiskey. This is a good cocktail whiskey straight. If you want to sip it on ice, it's a good sipping whiskey. So, if you're curious about Nearest Green's whiskey and his story, go to UncleNearest.com. And on there, they have a guy basically narrating the story of Nearest Green. And it's pretty interesting. And I have to give my brothers in the whiskey business kudos. This is a good drink.